So the whole world is talking about the new Pope, Leo XIV. But, beyond the big title and all the ceremony, there's a person there. So who is the man now leading one of the world's oldest institutions? Let's get into it.
It all happened so fast. It was only 17 days after the world said goodbye to Pope Francis, and then, there it was, that iconic plume of white smoke over the Sistine Chapel. It's a tradition that goes back centuries, and it means only one thing. A decision has been made. A new chapter was about to start. And just like that, a new spiritual leader for over 1 billion people had been chosen. So of course, the big question on everyone's mind was, who is this man? And what does his story tell us about where things are headed? That's what we're going to break down.
To really understand the new Pope, you've got to go way back. And his story, well, it doesn't start in the grand halls of Rome. It actually begins in the American Midwest.
So before he was Pope Leo XIV, he was just Robert Francis Prevost. But the name he chose, Leo, that's what's really fascinating here. It's a direct shout out to Pope Leo XIII, a major figure back in the late 1800s who was famous for defending workers' rights. So that choice, it was very, very intentional, a real nod to history. Let's just walk through his path for a second. He was born in Chicago back in '55. You can see his calling came pretty early, because by the time he was 22, he was already starting his journey as an Augustinian friar. And then just 5 years after that, he's ordained as a priest in Rome. So this wasn't some whim, This was a lifelong path.
And when I say lifelong, I mean it started really, really early. Get this, as a little kid, while other boys were playing outside, he would apparently use an ironing board as his own personal altar to play Mass. It's just this incredible picture of a faith that was there right from the start.
So, from that ironing board in a Chicago suburb, his life's work would take him all over the world. It really gave him this truly global perspective.
And if you're going to be a global leader, well, it helps to speak the languages. And boy, does he. He's fluent in English, Spanish, Italian, French, and Portuguese. Plus, he can read Latin and gets by in German. Just think about how many people he can connect with directly because of that. It's incredible. And this wasn't all just sitting in a library learning languages. For decades, he was really on the ground, serving different communities. His work took him from the US all the way to Peru for extensive missionary work, planting these deep personal roots in 2 totally different parts of the world. And that connection to Peru, it became official. He's not just someone who worked there, he's a dual citizen. He's American by birth, yeah, but he became a naturalized Peruvian citizen back in 2015. That gives him this really unique vantage point, bridging North and South America in a really personal way. And here's something that shows you he's not some guy living in an ivory tower. One of his hidden talents? He fixes beat-up cars for his local parish. And I love this part, when he gets stuck on a really tricky repair, he apparently pulls up YouTube tutorials to figure it out. How about that for a modern hands-on pope?
Okay, so you take all that experience, the global perspective, the practical skills, the deep faith, and it all led to a truly historic election on May 8th, 2025.
So he is the 267th Pope of the Roman Catholic Church. Now let that number sink in. That means he is part of an unbroken line of leadership that stretches back almost 2,000 years. It's just a mind-boggling amount of history.
But even though he's the 267th, his election just shattered all kinds of precedents. Think about it. He's the very first American Pope, he's the first Peruvian Pope, and he's the first Pope ever to come from the Augustinian order. That's 3 huge historical firsts all wrapped up in one person.
So we've met the priest, the missionary, the history maker. But all of that really only tells part of the story. To really get a sense of the guy, you have to look at what he does in his downtime. So how does the Pope actually unwind? Well, his hobbies are surprisingly normal. He plays Wordle, he plays words with friends, he likes to get out and play tennis, though he calls himself an amateur, and yep, he still loves tinkering with cars. It's just a very, very down-to-earth list.
And check this out. Right before he walked into the papal conclave, that super secret, serious process to choose the next leader of the entire Catholic Church, he took a minute to play one last game of Wordle. Come on, that's about as human a detail as you can get.
And true to his roots, you can take the man out of Chicago, but you can't take the Chicago out of the man. He's a diehard White Sox and Bears fan. He was even there in the stands cheering when the Sox won the World Series back in 2005.
But just when you think you've kind of got a handle on who this guy is, his story takes one more wild turn, which makes you wonder, does a pope have famous relatives?
The answer is, oh yeah. And this list is it's wild. Through some distant ancestor, he's actually related to Madonna, Angelina Jolie, Justin Bieber, Hillary Clinton, and Justin Trudeau. Yep, the Pope and the Biebs, distant cousins, who would have thought?
So what do you make of all this? Well, as one person put it, with his love of sports, cars, family, and Wordle, he might as well be called the Holy Dad. And you know what? It kind of fits. He's this figure of immense historical weight, but at the same time, he's someone who seems incredibly, surprisingly relatable in today's world.